I always wanted to do a cold steel collection video. My original idea was to put all of my knives into one big video, and I realized that is way too much work. And the video is going to be way too long also. So I'm gonna put only folding knives into this video. And yeah, this is basically my cold steel folding knife collection at its peak. I already started to sell off some of my cold steel knives, but I will still talk about those knives that I sold just because it feels a little bit more complete. And yeah, moving forward, I think I have already experienced most of the knives that cold steel have to offer, and there's not much that I personally can get from this brand anymore. As you might know, cold steel got sold a couple years ago, and they got sold again recently. And I just don't think that's going to be good for the brand in general. Although I have to say they come out with some really promising stuff every once in a while. Some stuff got worse, some stuff they made better, I think. There are a couple of knives on my list that I still want to get, but yeah, it's basically this is the end of my huge cold steel collection time, I guess. It sounds very dramatic. It isn't though. It's just I'm moving to different brands more. And I also don't want to have as many knives anymore because, yeah, as you might know, if you have too many knives, it becomes a burden. And I want to get rid of some stuff and have money available to buy new stuff, I guess. So yeah, to make it a little bit more interesting, I'm also going to rank my knives into 4 different categories. A for the absolute best, B for the knives that are not quite the best but still very, very good. C for the knives that are neither good nor bad, somewhere in between, and D for the knives that are really bad or bad in general. And I think I will also rank the knives within the categories, so you will have a total ranking of all my cold steel folding knives, I guess. Yeah, let's just start. Let's just jump into it, I guess. The first knife on the list is the Cold Steel Ranch Boss 2. This is a traditional knife from Cold Steel, which is not the usual stuff they do. This one is really nice. It uses the faux bone scales. Faux bone is basically plastic, but they have a really nice saw cut pattern on there. So it has a nice texture to it. It has a shield for engraving. The blade is a nice clip point, simple shape. It's definitely a good cutter. I wouldn't call it a slicer, laser slicer. It's more of a good cutting tool. It has a SK5 steel. This one is made in China, which is not what Cold Steel usually does. Most of their knives are obviously made in Taiwan, but this one is still very good in terms of quality. The SK5 will patina and will rust if you don't take care of it. This has a liner lock, so it's stronger than a traditional knife, and it's well built. It's well centered, well built, well constructed. Screwed construction, I suppose, to pin construction for most traditional knives. This is really not bad, especially for the low price this comes in. I do like it. This one lives in my kitchen drawer, and I use it for everything I don't want to use a nicer knife for. So this is kind of a kitchen beater knife, if you will. It cuts stuff that is gross and shouldn't be cut with a really expensive, thinly ground knife. So this is what I use this for. I would actually put this into B category because I think for the price, you get a good knife. I think they make this in a smaller version as well. Next up is the Cold Steel Recon one. Those who have followed the channel for a while know that I have had a big Recon 1 collection. The only 3 Recons I have left are these 3. Actually I have 4 because I have this knife twice, but it's the exact same knife, steel and color and everything. I just bought a double because I was afraid that they are, and I was right, they are not making this anymore. So yeah, the Recon 1 here with the green G10 is an XHP version, which was, I think, probably the best cold steel time there was. These were thinly hollow ground, which is very nice. The XHP is nice and hard and strops back really well. Yeah, it's just a good solid knife. I think in terms of tactical knives, on the market, this is probably one of the best tactical folding knife designs. It is a very big knife, but it carries very light weight. I think partially because it is a flat construction, so it goes in your pocket very nicely. It is a wide knife. It is a big knife. The blade is really wide, which is nice, especially with the hollow grind. You get a lot of lifetime out of this blade. I mean, just imagine if you resharpen this, how much lifetime there is. You can resharpen this knife a lot. Yeah, just a fantastic knife. The clip point is probably my favorite version. I do definitely put the XHP version into A category, because it doesn't really get any better with cold steel than that, I guess. And then I have this old spear point, which is still an AUS 8. This one doesn't hold an edge super long, but it is okay for a beta knife, and this is what this is. This is absolutely dirty and dusty on the inside, and this one has been used quite a bit, as you can see by the scratches. The partial serrations are not my favorite, to be honest. I would rather have this in a plain edge version or in a fully serrated version, but as it is, it's still okay. The AUS 8 versions were also hollow grind, and yeah, the G10 was very coarse on the AUS 8 and the XHP versions. I sold my S45VN versions, and I also sold my Tanto, all of my Tantos that I had. I had a couple of AUS 8 Tantos and a S45VN Tanto, and yeah, I got rid of all of these. So I only have the clip point and the spear point, and I'm thinking about getting one of those new made in Italy Magna Cut blades. Now the last Recon I have is a really old version. This one was the first Recon 1 design. They didn't have a triad lock back then, so they used an ultra lock, I think is what it is called. It's basically a crossbar style lock, but it is really reliable. I have to guess how old this is. I wrote it down somewhere, but this one is really old, and as you can see, this one has been used and beaten. I'm the second owner of this particular knife, and the first owner used it quite a bit. I also used it. He resharpened it and I resharpened it, and when I got it, he left this portion right here, he left unsharpened, and I did so as well. Not because I'm not able to remove this, but I wanted to see how much this knife changes over time. So you can see this knife was very wide, the blade was very wide before that. But yeah, this particular steel, I think, is 440B. They had some, I think the AUS 8 versions came a little bit later. And this also was the first Recon that was made in Taiwan. Before that, there was a version that was made in Japan, but that one is really rare. So yeah, pretty cool knife though. I think this is still a very functional knife, even considering how old this is. The pocket clip seats really deep, so that there is a lot of knife sticking out of your pocket. I like the close construction on this one, just great. And these are also hollow ground. And yeah, I think they are beautiful. Even these older Recons were just beautiful. One thing they did really better on these was that you get a lot closer to the cutting edge, as opposed to the newer ones. The newer ones, you have this big gap here, which is my least favorite part about the Recon. Other than that, I wouldn't change anything to the design. It's just this part that you're so far away from the cutting edge. This is the only thing I don't like. I guess you can choke up, but it's still, other than that, fantastic knife. I put all of these into A category, even this older version, because I think for the time this one came out, it was still a fantastic knife. I have no idea how expensive they were back then though. Speaking of the Recon 1, here's the Recon 1 Mini. I never had an XL version. Should have gotten one back then because they were widely available, but of course now they are very rare. The Mini is something they still make, or remake I should say. This one is AUS 10. It's a little bit thick behind the edge. I actually bought this for my dad because he likes the smaller knives, but he said it was too wide and bulky for him. And then I carried it also a bit, and I didn't like it as well because the way you grip this knife, it puts you in a saber grip, and you cannot hold this comfortably in a hammer grip. It's always It's just this one grip that works on here, and it feels weird cutting in this grip. And also, like I said, the geometry is a little bit thick. I like the stone wash, I like the quality. Quality is good. I just think this size doesn't work for the Recon. So if I would buy a Recon, I would rather buy a full-size version and not one of these minis. So yeah, I put this into C category. Quality is perfect, but the design is not the nicest here, I would say. So the next knife is actually a knife that I already sold. It's the holdout free. The holdout free is the smaller version of the holdout design. It's a very nice shape, very simplistic, very elegant shape in my opinion. But the one that I had in AUS 8 was really not that good. It struggled with edge retention quite a bit, so it had a really soft steel. The build quality was not that good. The blade went off-centered very often. And yeah, I sold it for that particular reason. I think the holdout in general though is a really good design. The XL version is just very overpriced now. The small version, like I said, I never liked too much. And the 4-inch version is sadly discontinued because I think that was probably their best version. But yeah, the holdout free as it was, I put into C category because it was neither good nor bad. Now the next knife is really big. In fact, it is so big that I carry it in a Kydex sheath on the belt. This is the 4max Scout. So Scout meaning it is a cheaper version of a more expensive version. So the G10 version was really, really expensive. I think still is. Or is it even available? I don't even know. But the Scout is really affordable for how much knife you get here. You get a full 5mm blade stock thickness of AUS 10A, which is a fantastic steel in my opinion. A very thick lock bar because of that. A really nice construction, very well built, nice stippling on the handle, and yeah, just a gigantic knife in general. So 4max basically they tried to make the maximum knife in the 4-inch category, and they probably did. This knife is as big as it gets in the 4-inch knife category. And yeah, it is kind of an impractical knife because it is so big and so heavy, unless you are a giant with gigantic hands and gigantic pockets. But yeah, it is not the most functional knife. So I would put this into category fun knife. So a knife to goof around with your friends, something you can beat, especially for the price this one comes in. I think mine was like 75 euros. It was really not expensive. And I think the 70 euros is more of a sale price, but you can get them relatively affordable, I guess. And yeah, I still put this into B category because I think for the quality that is offered here, it is a really good knife. B category for sure. The next knife is in the same category. This is the Airlite Lite. Again, the less expensive version of a more expensive knife. This one is ridiculously priced. This one is like 40 bucks. This is insane for how much knife you get here. Again, full 5mm blade stock. This clip point is not thin on the tip. It looks pointy, and it is pointy, but it is definitely not flimsy. This is a strong knife still. I guess the Tanto would be stronger, but this clip point, I always like the shape and the lines to it a lot more than the Tanto actually. Yeah, they make this in a 8CR14 MOV steel, which is a Chinese steel. It's very soft. I tested the edge retention on this one, and it cuts very few cuts. If you do a rope cut test, this knife is really dulling down very, very quickly. With a blade stock thickness this thick, you probably run into a really thick edge really quickly if you resharpen this a lot. But as it is out of the box, it is nice and thin actually for how thick it is. So yeah, a great knife. I like the handle shape. 100% an Andrew Demko design. You can really see his lines here. The only thing I don't like is this big and shiny pocket clip. Other than that, the quality, the action, everything is really good here. I guess the steel could be better, but how much can you ask for 40 bucks? I think for 40 bucks you're not getting more knife anywhere, even from China. This is This is ridiculous. And these are made in Taiwan, which is pretty cool, I think. So yeah, I would actually rank this above the 4MAX just because I think it is a more practical design. And yeah, I would always pick a SR1 Lite over a 4MAX just because it's easier to carry. But yeah, both are really cool knives. The 4MAX is definitely in a higher quality range, I would say, and the steel is a lot better, but the SR1 Lite has the nicer, more functional design, I think. Alright, I just realized I ranked the Ranch Boss above these two, but I'm actually gonna rank it below, and also gonna rank the Holdout Free, even though mine was not too good, above the Recon 1 Mini. So next knife is another knife that I don't have no more. It is the American Lawman Mini. The American Lawman Mini was the smaller version, as you can expect from the American Lawman, which the American Lawman is a good, solid B-tier knife, I think. The Mini just didn't work out as well because of the design. Cold Steel is really good with bigger knives, they're not as good with small knives. It had a nice XHP steel with a DLC coating, but it was just a little bit too short, and the handle was weird because of those cool looking finger grooves, which were not as cool functionally. But yeah, it was a well constructed knife. The design just didn't make a lot of sense to me personally. I would also put the American Lawman Mini into C tier, the full size version definitely into B, maybe even A tier, I guess. Next up are two recurve blades from Cold Steel. The first one is the Raja Free, which I like to call the baby Raja. The full-size Raja is an XL folder, and its smaller version here is, yeah, like I said, the baby Raja, which kind of looks cute and small. It has a nice Copis style recurve blade, which is a Greek shape, an ancient Greek shape, obviously. Very wide blade also. This one has the thumb disc as opposed to the thumb studs, which I don't like as much as the thumb studs from Cold Steel. Nice stippling, has a similar thickness than the counterpoint. If you have that knife, this handle feels familiar in terms of texture and width. The price is also really good on these, and the steel is AUS 10, fantastic steel. A nice construction also in terms of build quality and everything. These are constructed really well, but the only thing that I don't like with this knife is the design. The blade is shrunken down quite significantly to the full-size version, so this one feels it just feels a little bit too small, I have to say. Recurves need a little bit of length in order to express their lines, and this one just got a little bit too short. I wish it was a couple of centimeters bigger in all the dimensions, also in the handle, because the handle feels really, really tight. This gap right here between this finger guard and the stop here feels very, very tight and very, very small. And I have smaller hands, so this is going to be just bad for most people, I guess. A couple of millimeters in the front or in the back should have been added to make this a nice grip, but as it is, it feels too tight in the grip, and the blade is just a little bit too short as you use it. I like the concept though, because this is a more EDC friendly recurve. Most of Cold Steel's recurves are tactical knives, and this is more of a EDC knife. And yeah, it's just the design just didn't work out. And I hate to say it, but this would have been really, really good if they spent a little bit more time designing this. So I have to put this into C category just because it kind of doesn't make any sense the way it is done. It's very sad for me personally, because I kind of like this knife. I want to like this, but it just doesn't work. So yeah, this is the Raja Free. I would put this above the Recon 1 Mini though. The next recurve blade is one that actually works. This one is an iconic design from Cold Steel. I waited for a very long time to get the fully flat ground version, because before that they were only making the hollow grind version, and I just like this blade a little bit better because it it unlocks the full potential of this knife. It has a really thinly ground blade with a nice thin tip. So this one is slicey and stabby at the same time. The stonewash is beautiful. The good things here, the beautiful looks of the stonewash with the black handle, just a very classy look. The AUS 10, great steel. The thumb disc, not so great, not my favorite way of opening a knife. If you don't want to have this knife hooking on your pants, it still will happen most of the time. The handle is gigantic. It locks you in very nicely, I have to say, but it is also enormous. So this knife is not easy to carry. I do like the grooves here. Visually speaking, I don't like them as much, but functionally they work. I also like these little cutouts for whatever reason they made those. They just look interesting. But yeah, strong triad lock, reliable locking system, and a really devastating blade. This knife is crazy in the performance on a tactical level, of course, because for EDC stuff this is too big for most things actually. But yeah, still an outstanding cold steel knife, I think. Overall, especially for the price, this one was like 70 bucks. Back then with the old design they were even cheaper, so price to performance ratio huge, quality really, really good. And I think when it comes to the recurves, Raja and Spartan, the Spartan is just a better knife. And I actually put this into B category. I just don't know if I put it above the RC1 Lite, but I think I actually will because the quality is better. The next knife here is actually the only D tier knife that is on this list. This is the Cold Steel Bushranger, and as you could see, this knife has problems opening and closing. For some reason the action is messed up terribly. The blade centering on this one is really, really off as well, and I think it is because the blade is actually bent. Maybe you can see that the blade is bent to the right side quite a bit. The swedge up here is also very, very ugly ground. It is not a very good job on here. The grind is really, really thick. This one happens to be S45VN. I don't know if they were always this bad, but maybe I just got a bad one. But I can imagine the other ones should be ground similarly, because why would they grind this one thicker and the other one's thinner? So they're probably all this thick behind the edge. So this knife doesn't cut very well. The design is a little bit weird because you don't know how to hold this. I like the G10 generally speaking. I don't like the thumb plate on here. I think they should have gone with the thumb studs, would have been a lot better. I like the concept, an outdoorsy clip point knife, but the design is just weird, and the quality on this particular one just terrible, and I don't know why. Also doesn't hold an edge for very long because I guess the heat treatment is off here, I don't know. But this particular version that I got, just bad, and the design in general to me just doesn't work. So I put this into B tier, into D tier, not into B tier. Next up, another knife that I wish was a little bit better. It's the Cold Steel Airlite. I had both experience with the Airlite Tanto and also with the Airlite Draw Point that I still own. As you can see, this one is a beater knife. This one gets used quite a bit. It's discolorated on the G10, and the thumb stud is actually rusty from some acid that this knife got in contact with. So this is a beater knife that I use at work, and it is really beaten up. The G10 is damaged quite a bit and discolorated, and the blade has been used quite a bit also. I like the design, I like the concept of the Airlite. It's thin, it's lightweight. The pocket clip is way too big though. On the satin version it's even more of an issue because it's very bright and shiny. And I mean, look at the size of this clip. This clip is almost as big as the entire knife. So no, I don't like the clip, and the thickness behind the edge is really, really thick. I made a dedicated video why that matters, where I showed the difference between the edge retention of a thinly ground AUS 10 blade steel and this one. And yeah, the edge retention is a lot lower due to the thickness behind the edge. Concept is good, didn't work though for me in terms of performance. I just use it as a beater knife. I don't even know if I can resell this because I've been using it so much. So I wish they would have hollow ground these, because they would have been absolute stellar, thinly constructed, lightweight EDC knives. But as they are, they're not perfect. Yeah, I would put the Airlite Tanto, because of the performance that was really bad, into C category. And I would put the drop point also into C category actually, but I would rank it a little bit higher, to be honest, because the Tanto was really bad in performance, but the Airlite is slightly better. So the next knife is also very thin and very lightweight, very easy to carry. This one is the Broken Skull, with the absolute worst name in knife history. This one I carry a lot during the summer because, like I said, it's very, very lightweight, but it is very big at the same time, so it has a lot of cutting edge. The blade overall, it is very wide, but the whole concept here of the knife, it's very, very slim, very, very thin actually. So but you get a nice and wide blade with a lot of performance. This one is XHP, which I think is discontinued at this point. The cheaper version I think is still good though for the price. But yeah, this XHP, really good, nice DLC coating. And this one has the brown G10 that is medium in the coarseness. As you can see, I've carried this a bit over the years. I don't carry it as much anymore because I have moved to different knives. I still will keep this because I think it is a really good knife. In terms of build quality, I think it could be better. A lot of cold steels are better constructed than this particular one, but I think the performance is still very, very good on this one. So I rank the Broken Skull both in the cheaper version and also in the XHP version in B category, because I think the concept is just well executed here. I think this design originally was called the Lone Star because Cold Steel already made those back in the days. And this is basically the redesign of that. So yeah, I put this, where do I actually put this? I would put this here because it's a very practical knife actually. The next knife is also very thin and lightweight and easy to carry. This is the Code 4. The Code 4 is not being spoken about a lot anymore. This was really good when this came out though. And especially with when they switched to XHP, because these were made in OS 8 before. And XHP was obviously a huge upgrade. And yeah, this one is nice and strong on the spine. So you get a very thin and lightweight knife, but it is very strong. And hollow ground XHP, just fantastic. The aluminum scales have a boring gray color, and sadly they are well anodized, so they hold up to scratches really well, which I would like this knife to be a lot scratchier because it would look definitely better. I carried this a ton. I acid washed the clip because it was too bright and too shiny, I think. And yeah, I have this little leather lanyard on here, and I carried this a lot. When I got into cold steels, right at the switch from OS 8 to XHP, and this knife I carried quite a lot at that time. So yeah, I don't carry it as often anymore, but I still, I mean, I carried this for years at a time, and I still like it quite a bit. I think it's a fantastic knife because most knives in this weight class are not as strong in terms of on the blade. And I pried open a lot of paint cans with this and did a lot of crazy stuff, and I still like it quite a bit. And I would put this into A category for sure. I would rank it somewhere between the Recon 1 in OS 8 and XHP.